Hello again, RoyZesch.REALTOR here with Coldwell Banker Legacy in San Angelo. Today I want to talk to you about brush control on rural properties. And one of the things you need to know about this as we get into it, that if you have any sort of cleared property that you're not maintaining, mowing regularly, whatever, you're going to have to deal with brush control. That's true if you've got 1 acre or 100,000 acres. It doesn't really matter. You're going to have to deal with it. So, a little bit of background on it. The mesquite is one of the real common ones we have around here. The mesquite was actually introduced. It came over with cattle and they dropped the seeds and they kind of spread that way. So it's not even a native plant. And mesquite generally will get bigger the better the soil is. So a lot of places you see, particularly as you go farther west from San Angelo toward Midland, Odessa, the mesquites are a lot shorter as there's just not as much soil and water for them. Mesquites will use a huge amount of water. It's absolutely incredible some of the numbers for the amount of water that a mesquite tree will use. Cedar is another one that's real common in different parts of our area. It is a native plant, but it's fairly invasive, and if the soil's not taken good care of, then it tends to get worse, get thicker, bigger, and will eventually pretty well crowd out anything if it can progress to that point. Cedar typically starts in soil that's not very high quality. So when you see a lot of cedar somewhere, that's a sign that your soil quality is not as good, just as a little thought process. So anyway, over the long haul, you're going to have to deal with what you want to do with managing your brush. I mean, there's lots of other brush, but it's not as big and hard to manage. There's several different methods you can use to manage it, and you can use it depending on what your desires are for the property. And if you want to raise cattle on it, you want almost none of these invasive plants because they use so much water. That's water and nutrients that don't get to go to the grass that you're growing for cattle or stuff. But if you're doing it primarily for hunting and stuff, you want a certain amount of it out there for cover. So there's lots of different ways you can do it in rows or do different sections or whatever, because it's going to come back after you take care of it. So then there are different methods that you can use to control it. You can use mechanical methods. It's bulldozer, excavator, something like that will basically you remove the plant. And with both the cedar and the mesquite, you've got to get a certain amount of the root out of the ground. There's a ball on the root of a mesquite tree, for example, and if you don't get that out of the ground, it'll come right back up. But if you get that out of the ground, typically what they'll do, they'll use an excavator or a bulldozer, depending on how big the trees are, and then they'll make piles of it that you let sit there 6 months or so, and then you can burn them, get rid of all of it, and then you get that area back. And again, the mesquites will start almost immediately trying to come back up. So another method you can use is chemical methods. You know, there's several different sprays you can use. There's varying levels of cost in them depending on what your goals are. There's one of the methods people use today, there's some different weed killers that they can spray on in the spring. And the weed killers won't kill the mesquites the first time you use them, but repetitive use you will. So you get a double benefit. You get weed control, plus you get a moderate kill on the mesquites. And if you do it a few times, 3 or 4 times in a few years, 5 to 10 years, then you can get pretty good control of your mesquites. It's still temporary. They're going to start coming back up after that. So it's just a constant process that you're going to be involved in for the period of time that you own the land. And another method you can use sometimes, it's getting more and more difficult to use, is fire. Fire was the natural control for this type of brush. That's why there wasn't near the brush out here 200 years ago that there is today, is because there were frequent wildfires. And a wildfire will do really good with a lot of weeds, a lot of the shorter type brush, even the mesquites and cedars at a certain size, it will get a real good kill on them. But once they get big enough to get above most of the heat of the fire, that doesn't work as well. Fire is difficult because it can get out of hand. Really what's best for the soil and kill is to do it during the summer. But when it gets dry during the summer, it's just not a safe thing to do. And to do it nowadays, you got to do it when there's not a burn ban going on. You usually have to have, there's burn experts that you can have, consultants to come out and help you do the burn, or they'll do all of the work. You know, there's some different methods you can do it, but it's a really quite difficult to use, even though it is one of the most effective long-term means. So it's difficult because of the liability you run into. If a fire starts on your property and goes across into your neighbors and does a lot of damage, then you have an issue there. So So we talked about mechanical means, chemical means, and fire as means of controlling brush. And you can use, and if you can do some of even fire in small amounts, you can do small areas. If you've got a way to protect it and guard it, then it can be very effective. And some combination of this is always a possibility. And some of it just depends on what your budget is. But it's just the understanding that if you've got problems with cedars and mesquites in particular, that if you don't do anything, they will get to a point that they will crowd out most everything. The cedars in particular will get to a point that make the soil acidic, and almost no grass can grow in the vicinity of the cedars. And if they get to keep going, they will get where they almost overlap and there's literally no grass out there. So it's something you're going to have to deal with at some point. It's just a matter of choosing your method and your budget and figuring out how to make it all fit for you. So something to think about when you're buying property is, what is the status of it today? Again, it's still going to be something you're going to have to deal with in the future. But if something's been cleared to the level you want it, or even a little more clear than you want it, that's fine when you buy it, that you know that, hey, maybe instead of needing to start doing stuff immediately after I buy this property, I might have 5 or 10 years before I have to start doing much control of the brush and stuff. So different things to think about. Again, a lot of it is your budget and your desires for the property and how clear do you want it to be. So it's up to you. Just things we want to talk about as you're looking for the property to make sure we find out what you're looking for, that you don't regret it down the road. So any more questions, give me a call. RoyZesch.REALTOR, 325-268-0775. Thank you.